I'm sure you're probably getting tired of me reminding everyone, but this is the last time. This upcoming Thursday, August 1st, we're going to have a channel meet and greet, 12 p.m. Eastern at Masthead Brewing in downtown Cleveland. So if you're in the area, I would love if you could stop by, grab a bite to eat, get something to drink, talk brownies with me. It's a great opportunity for me to put some of the faces to names that have been in the chat for so long. So would love it if you can join this Thursday, 12 p.m. Eastern, Masthead Brewing. Welcome on into the Cleveland Browns Report. Coming up on today's show, we're going to start off with the Browns' secret weapon. And it's not what you're probably thinking. JOK, Grant Delpit. No, I'm going a completely different direction. I'm going off the reservation. The Browns, I think, have a secret weapon in Mike Vrabel. Yes, the consultant. Not even an official coach on this team, but the way he is talked about and discussed and brought up in media press conferences with Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski, it's hard not to be excited about what the Browns have in Vrabel. So let's tune into what Kevin Stefanski said in his press conference on Tuesday about Mike Vrabel.
We have Vrabes really focusing with the offense. I mean, Vrabes, we're having him do a bunch of different things, and I know you guys are going to talk to him, and he can kind of, tell you what he's doing, but helps me a ton in all the head coaching areas. I can bounce things off of him, helps our personnel group because he's got a very good eye for personnel. And then I just think it's valuable to have a former defensive player, former defensive coach in the offensive meeting. So Vrabes is in there with us on offense kind of giving that perspective from a defensive side, and then in particular working with the tight ends when we get to an individual perspective.
Yeah, Vrabes is awesome. He's
Something
awesome.
that I've noticed over the last couple of practices and really going back to the spring is the Browns have 3 head coaches on their staff. Stefanski, Mike Vrabel, and Jim Schwartz, which sometimes can lead to too many cooks in the kitchen, which if anyone goes to bar trivia with a large team every so often, you know what I mean by that. But every single one of these coaches really seems to be loving their role. Jim Schwartz is at a place where it's kind of like head coach retirement or like a halfway house where he goes, you know what? I'm probably not going to be an NFL head coach again. So I don't mind kind of riding off into the sunset of my coaching career with just one thing in mind: killing opposing quarterbacks. And he's pretty darn good at it. Like, he seems to really embrace and love the role that he's in and not constantly searching to get out of the role he's in. Now, Vrabel's not quite in the same camp because he's definitely looking to become a head coach again. He was interviewing for head coaching vacancies just a few months ago. But as a consultant, like, listen to what Andrew Berry has to say about this too. It's not just me feeling this way.
Yeah, Vrabes is awesome. He's awesome. And we are lucky because I think, and you all probably see it, we're probably on borrowed time with him. But we're going to maximize it as much as possible. I think he has such a unique perspective because here's a former, all-pro player, coached in Power 5 college, defensive coordinator, and then very, very successful head coach in Tennessee. So there's nothing that he hasn't seen or that he can't provide, insight into, whether it's how we're practicing on the field, how we game plan, our player development and player support areas, how we think about, acquiring players, whether it's in the draft or free agency. So, we were certainly getting our money's worth with Mike, and we couldn't be more pleased to have him here with us.
Just to kind of piggyback off that, you mentioned you might be on borrowed time. So this is a guy that I think most people consider one of the top coaches in the league. So just to have that opportunity to bring him in, how exciting was that? How quick did you get to jump in?
It was pretty exciting because I remember when Kevin and I were talking about it, we were like, do you think he'd do this? Like, do you do you think he'd do this, or he's gonna maybe want to take the year off with his family? And so we kind of came in softly, tactfully, and it was from the very beginning, oh yeah, I'd love to do this. Yeah, that'd be great. It's pretty cool because we had all we had known Mike from crossing Paresso Pass. Kevin was on a committee with him and everything, but to see him day to day, I mean, you would think he's a first-time NFL QC by how much he's sprinting up and down the field. So it's really, really awesome.
What type of energy does that bring to the guys then on the field that have been so involved with running around hands-off?
It's great. It's very competitive energy because Mike's a little bit of a trash talker sometimes, and he's a very active coach. So the guys love having him around.
You do with the changes.
Have after listening to Stefanski and Berry. One, not to sound like a total simp, but every single time Andrew Berry speaks, it is so intoxicating because he's just so intelligent, and it's so relieving to know, like, man, do the Browns have the right guy at the wheel. And that's something they've been searching for in a head coach and GM duo since '99, and they've got it with Berry and Stefanski, and you don't need to second guess it. Two, when it comes to Vrabel in particular, I think he's going to be a huge asset this season. And I think that Vrabel is already showing how big of an asset he will be on the practice field, all of training camp. He's literally ending every single practice doing sprints with Jameis Winston because he wants to get, quote, these old bones moving along. But you just got to envision that Vrabel, with how great of a coach he was at Tennessee, and I think what a dumb decision it was by the Titans to fire him after one season where things didn't go to plan because, or I guess 1.5 seasons, but a lot of injuries and poor quarterback play that were somewhat out of his control. Like, to me, that seemed like a premature pull of the plug. But Vrabel, just the ability he has to hone in on individuals and get the best out of them. Like, think about it this way. Stefanski has always been a bit more of a tactician. Like, when you start, this might go above some people's heads, though, NCAA coach dynasty mode, you get to pick one of 3 options: recruiter, tactician, or motivator. And I think Andrew Berry is a great recruiter, right? He's put together an awesome roster. I think Stefanski's a great tactician. I do think he is a good play caller, and sure, he might overcomplicate it at times, but overall, I do think he, from an X's and O's standpoint, is brilliant. But Vrabel's your motivator. And that's probably the last thing that was missing from Stefanski. And I think it speaks volumes that Stefanski recognized, like, hey, I'm not a perfect head coach. So if Vrabel can kind of fill in some of the gaps that I'm not the best at, that's just going to make this football team better. And that's what makes me so excited about Vrabel's addition to this roster. Now, I also think it's important to note that Mike Vrabel himself said he will have no role on game day. And this goes back to what I said earlier about having too many cooks in the kitchen. Like, you don't want Mike Vrabel, like, on the sideline, maybe contradicting what Stefanski would do or say, because Vrabel's, like, old habits of being a head coach is kicking in, and now you're getting conflicting messaging and instructions from 2 guys on the sideline. No. Stefanski's still the head coach. He's still in charge on Sundays. But Vrabel's going to make sure guys are getting ready from Monday to Saturday. And that's going to be a huge, awesome improvement for this team and for this roster. Now, before we look at the rest of today's show, I do want to tell everyone about our friends over at Game Time. Today's show is sponsored by Game Time. If you love summer baseball and want to catch a Guardians game or any other Major League team in your area, you're going to want to give Game Time a shot. With Game Time, you can take the guessing work out of buying MLB tickets because they are an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which means getting tickets easier and faster. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. Now, one thing I really like about Game Time are their flash deals. You can save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. So download the Game Time app today, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but again, create an account and redeem code CHAT Sports for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. I put all that information in the comments and description of today's video. Second storyline subject I want to tackle. What's the plan without Nick Chubb? Because the Browns, Andrew Berry specifically, spoke to the media about rough return timelines for guys like Greg Newsome and Dalvin Tomlinson, who he thinks can be back for week 1. But when asked about Chubb, he didn't seem to have that much confidence in Chubb being back for week 1. So let's just discuss the possibility of Chubb not being ready for week 1, because it doesn't appear like the Browns have a ton of optimism. So let's say Nick Chubb stays on the PUP list. If you do not get off the PUP list when roster cutdown day comes around, you get moved from the active PUP list to the reserve PUP list, which means you have to miss a minimum of 4 weeks to start the season. So that's kind of like a worst case, and we'll talk more about that in a second. But let's just remind everyone what the Browns have in their running back stable. Jerome Ford, Deontay Foreman, and Pierre Strong are your top 3 backs afterwards. Nyheim Hines, I think, is pretty much exclusively in a special teams role. So my prediction is if the Browns do not have Nick Chubb for the first few weeks of the season, Jerome Ford will be the primary back on first and second down. Pierre Strong, I know that people have mentioned as like in rotation with Jerome Ford, but truth be told, I don't think the Browns are going to be running the ball all that much to give enough touches for there to be a balance between Ford and Strong. They didn't bring Ken Dorsey in to help out Deshaun Watson to just turn around and go, but you know who needs touches? Pierre Strong Jr. Now, so I think it's Ford on first and second, Pierre Strong Jr. for receiving downs or receiving situations, and Deontay Foreman will be that Kareem Hunt of goal line packages, third and inches, just put it in his gut and have him drive the pile forward. Ultimately, if they don't have Nick Chubb, they're probably not going to be a high run rate team. They're going to be passing the ball a lot. They'll check the box of running it from time to time so the offense doesn't become too predictable. But I don't think you're going to see a good amount of touches going around all 3 other backs. I think you're going to see an uptick in passing. Now, you can look at the stats last year. Deontay Foreman, the most notable addition in terms of offseason acquisitions in the running back room, really the only one. And last year for the Bears, he kind of flirted between being a healthy scratch and being injured and missing time. But the Browns, they're confident, at least they are publicly confident, as they should be, in the other 3 backs. Now, the plausible worst-case scenario, like I mentioned earlier, is 4 weeks without Nick Chubb. If he stays on the PUP list, he has to miss a minimum of 4 weeks, and then a 5-week practice window opens up. I don't think, and this is a little bit of wishful thinking, but a little bit of honest thinking as well, I don't think Nick Chubb will be placed on the reserve PUP list. I don't think the Browns are going to shut him down for a minimum of 4 weeks. If you guys recall, when OBJ was coming back from his torn ACL, the Browns could have kept OBJ on the PUP list or placed him on IR. And if you place a guy on IR to start the season, they're out the first 4 weeks. They didn't do that because they felt like he'd be back at least by week 3. And sure enough, he came back for the 3rd week of the season. Same thing happened with Jack Conklin. My guess is the Browns won't want to put themselves in a spot where they can't have Nick Chubb's services if he's ready earlier than expected because they didn't want to waste a roster spot on him. I think they're willing to gamble on, yeah, Chubb might miss the first 2, maybe 3 weeks, but the moment we can get him back, we want him back. And if that happens to be the 4th week, we'll burn a roster spot on him for the first 3 weeks because he's that valuable to us. Now, before we wrap up today's show, I just want to show some love to those of you that subscribe to the channel, helped us reach 35,000 subscribers. Believe me, it does not get lost on me how much this channel has grown over the last 3 years. So Jack, Brian Wagner, Brandon Campbell, Keith Blackwell, thank you guys so much for joining the channel, helping us get over that hump of 35K. And if you want a shout out on a future episode, make sure to hit that sub button down below. All right, last storyline we got to go over. Dome. I think everyone's not getting tired of this conversation, but they're getting tired of how slowly the updates are progressing, and they're like, just tell us what's going to happen. I don't really need to be involved in this really boring episode of Game of Thrones with a bunch of dialogue and no battles. Like, that's kind of what's going on with the Browns Dome situation. But it appears to be gaining more and more momentum. So here's what Andrew Berry said to the media on Monday when asked about the Dome potential.
So I'll say, first and foremost, from a football standpoint, any solution is like, we're a yes, like two thumbs up, because any solution where we're improving our home environment, where we're improving the fan experience, like that's going to be great for us regardless of where, we're outdoors and indoors. I know, ownership, Dave Jenkins, our local politicians are hard at work on a solution. If you're asking my opinion personally, I personally think that we are like paying these guys to be athletes as opposed to gladiators. So I'd prefer like the dome solution. I'd prefer to be indoors. I think that's better for the team. And I also think being in the Midwest, with the elements and everything, it's better for our fans as well. It creates a better fan experience late in the year when we're making those playoff pushes. But I do want to emphasize, any solution's a good solution. We're happy whether it's a renovation, a build, whatever, because it just means that our home environment is that much more of a home field advantage here in Cleveland.
Andrew, you mentioned.
I know that adding a dome stadium is not something that everyone can agree on because it comes with some pros and cons. The biggest con is it would likely result in the team or the stadium moving out to the suburbs and not being in Cleveland. I don't know how else to say it other than a dome stadium is coming. One way or the other, it's going to happen. Whether that means the city of Cleveland and maybe the county and or state pony up a little bit more money because the Haslams, although being billionaires, still want to split the cost some way. At some point, the Browns and the ownership are going to get what they want. And they want a dome stadium. They may try and play both sides to keep everyone happy for as long as possible. But when that day comes where there's a fork in the road and they have to make a decision, they're turning to whichever way says dome stadium here. Now, I was team no dome. That's not AFC North football. It's not grit. It's not physical. It's not violent. It's candy ass. It's Southern. Until a Southern team like the Saints came and knocked the Browns out of the playoffs in December. That's when I decided, all right, I'm switching sides. Because I'm not going to sit in the cold and watch them lose to a team from New Orleans if this is the price of an outdoor stadium, when we could at least be comfortable and watch them lose to a team from New Orleans. Plus, not that Deshaun Watson and a dome could overlap too much. I mean, this dome could be 5 years away, and I'm not going to, look in a crystal ball and look that far in the future, but quarterbacks play better in a dome. That's just a fact. So do you guys want a dome stadium? I'll turn it over to you to kind of wrap up the video. Give me a Y for yes or an N for no down in the comment section. Yes or no to a dome stadium. I'm typing Y for yes. I will say, though, the one reason that people use for adding a dome that I don't agree with is you can get so many events, Final Fours, Super Bowls. The Vikings got a dome stadium. They got the Super Bowl. They got the Final Four. I don't think either one of those events plan on going back to Minnesota. So don't sell people this lie of it's going to bring in so much stuff like Super Bowls and Final Fours. Drop the S. You get one. Does anyone think the Final Four is going back to Minneapolis anytime soon? Or the NFL is bringing the Super Bowl back to Minneapolis? Probably not. If they do, it's probably going to be for another 20 years. So that, I never agree with that logic. That is just untrue. And I also think with how big of a success the Super Bowl was in Vegas last year, the NFL is very quick to react to good news and put things in motion. Wow, we dominated Christmas Day because it happened to fall on one of our days. Next year's on a Wednesday. No, we're still going to play on Christmas Day. Does anyone think the NFL wouldn't rule out just a permanent rotation of like 3 cities? Las Vegas, SoFi, and maybe Glendale? Whichever places are the best hosts for a Super Bowl, and just ping pong between those 3 cities and move the draft to every other city that gets upset about it? All right, let's pick up Trizzy Trace here to pick a card.
I'm going to go with the 7 of diamonds.
7 of diamonds?
Let's do it.
All right, I'm going to go with the 6 of hearts. Here we go.
Come on, give me something good.
No. Anyone getting this chat right? No. 9 of spades.
Dang.
9 of spades. All right, that will do it for us on today's episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of your day. I'll see everyone Thursday, August 1st, 12 p.m. Eastern, Masthead Brewing in Cleveland.